The night was quiet, almost too quiet, in Keanu Reeves's small home. It was his birthday, yet no sound of laughter filled the air. No balloons, no candles, no friends waiting around a table. He sat alone, a faint smile on his lips, but behind. That smile was a weight, heavy and unspoken. The world saw him as a star, a man admired by millions. But at that moment he was just a person sitting in silence, with nothing but the flicker of a single candle on a small cake he had bought for himself. The first few minutes of that night felt endless. Keanu leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. The years had given him many gifts: success, respect, recognition, but they had also taken things from him. Moments like this reminded him of what was missing. The silence of the house pressed against him. His phone lay on the table untouched. No new messages, no calls. He didn't want to appear bitter, but the emptiness was hard to ignore. He whispered softly to himself, "Happy birthday, old man." His voice cracked slightly, a sound he hoped no one would hear. It was strange, the way loneliness could creep in even for someone surrounded by fame. But here he was, realizing how fragile the human heart could be, no matter how strong it appeared on the outside. Suddenly, there was a sound, a soft knock at the door. At first, Keanu thought he imagined it, maybe his mind playing tricks to break the stillness. But then it came again, steady, real, echoing through the quiet. His brow furrowed, curiosity rising in his chest. Who would come at this hour? Who would even know? He stood slowly, the wooden floor creaking under his feet as he walked toward the door. He hesitated for a moment, his hand resting on the knob, his heart unexpectedly racing. When he finally opened it, the sight before him made his breath catch. Standing there, her eyes filled with a mix of hesitation and warmth, was Ana de Armas. She held a small gift wrapped in plain paper. Nothing grand, nothing glamorous. Her presence alone was enough to shatter the stillness of the night. Keanu blinked, almost as if he couldn't trust what he was seeing. Ana gave him a small, nervous smile and whispered, "Happy birthday, Keanu." The words hung in the air, simple yet powerful. For a moment, Keanu couldn't speak. The emptiness of the room behind him seemed to dissolve in the light of her presence. It was unexpected, almost surreal, like a twist he never saw coming. "Ana," he finally managed, his voice soft, almost breaking. "What are you doing here?" She stepped closer, her eyes gentle, carrying an emotion he couldn't quite name. "I heard you were spending it alone. I didn't want that for you. No one should sit alone on their birthday." Those words struck deep. They were not filled with pity, not forced, but carried a genuine kindness. Keanu felt a lump in his throat, his heart heavy yet lighter at the same time. The contrast of loneliness and sudden connection was overwhelming. He stepped aside, his hand motioning her inside. "Come in," he said quietly. The air shifted as she walked through the doorway, bringing with her not just company but something deeper: respect, care, and the kind of kindness that could heal silent wounds. Ana looked around the room, her gaze falling on the small cake with the single candle. Her eyes softened even more. "You really were sitting alone," she said, almost to herself. She turned back to him, her voice low but steady. "You deserve more than this, Keanu. You've given so much of yourself to others. Tonight, let someone give to you." His eyes glistened, though he tried to hide it. The moment felt fragile, like a glass that could break with one wrong move. Yet it was powerful, filled with truth. And as they stood there, the candle flickering on the table, something inside Keanu shifted. The night that had begun in silence had turned into a moment he would never forget. The candle on the table burned lower, its small flame casting long shadows on the walls. The air inside the room had changed. It no longer felt like a hollow. space where silence ruled. It felt alive, filled with a quiet energy that came with Anna's presence. Keanu sat down slowly, watching her as she placed the small wrapped box gently on the table. He wondered what drove her here, what made her step into his night when no one else had. But before he could ask, she spoke softly, her eyes fixed on the candle. "You know," Anna began, "birthdays are not about counting years. They're about remembering that we are still here, still able to give something to the world. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to remember." Her words hooked Keanu instantly. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing slightly, not in suspicion, but in curiosity. The way she said it felt personal, almost like she was speaking about herself, not just him. "And what about you?" he asked carefully. "What made you remember me tonight?" Anna smiled faintly, though it was touched with something deeper, something almost sad. "Because I know how it feels, to be surrounded by people yet still feel like you're alone. I didn't want that for you. Not tonight." Keanu's heart tightened. The hook was there. The idea that Anna, someone admired, beautiful, and celebrated, could understand his loneliness. The audience watching this moment would lean in closer, realizing that even those who shine the brightest can feel the same emptiness. The silence between them grew heavy again. But this time it wasn't empty. It was filled with unspoken thoughts. Keanu finally broke it, his voice low. "I thought people forgot. Maybe I wanted to believe they did because it's easier than facing disappointment." Anna's eyes softened, and she shook her head. "No, Keanu, people don't forget you. They look at you like a symbol, like someone too strong to ever need company. But symbols get lonely too. I came tonight not because you needed me, but because I wanted you to know you're human, and that's enough." The words hit harder than he expected. For years, Keanu had carried himself with quiet humility, never demanding attention, never chasing noise. But tonight he felt seen in a way he hadn't felt in years. Anna reached out, her fingers brushing lightly against the edge of the cake plate. "Make a wish," she said softly. "Let this night mean something." He chuckled under his breath, almost bitter. "Wishes. I stopped making those a long time ago." "Then tonight," she replied gently. "Start again." Hook after hook, the conversation pulled Keanu and the viewers deeper. Would he dare to hope again? Would he let his guard fall? The camera of the mind would linger on his face, the candlelight flickering in his eyes as he closed them slowly. His wish was silent, locked inside his heart. But when he opened his eyes again, he felt lighter, as if saying it, even in silence, had given him some release. Anna smiled. "That's better," she whispered, her voice carrying a kind of warmth that no spotlight could ever give. Then she leaned back in her chair, her eyes studying him in the soft light. "Keanu, do you remember when we first worked together? You were so quiet, always watching, always listening. People thought you were distant, but I saw something else. I saw someone who carried more than anyone could guess." He blinked, her words surprising him. "And what did you see?" Anna tilted her head slightly. "I saw a man who gave more kindness than he ever received. I don't think people realize how much of yourself you hide just to keep giving." Keanu looked down at his hands. Her words dug into places he usually kept buried. He wasn't used to someone calling out his hidden truths so openly. The audience, too, would feel the pull. This wasn't just about a birthday anymore. It was about respect, about recognition, about two people who saw each other beyond fame. Suddenly, a gust of wind from the half-open window flickered the candle flame violently. Both of them turned their heads, watching as the flame almost died out. But it caught again, glowing faintly, refusing to disappear. Keanu let out a quiet laugh. "Even the candle is stubborn tonight." Anna's lips curved into a smile. Or maybe it's reminding us, even a weak flame can fight the dark if it refuses to give up. Another hook. The kind of line that stays in the mind, making viewers reflect on their own lives, their own small flames that they must protect. Anna leaned forward again, her voice turning serious. You've lived through loss, pain, silence, and still, you've never let go of your kindness. That's rare, Keanu. Do you even realize how rare that is? He swallowed, emotion rising in his chest. Sometimes, he admitted. I wonder if kindness even matters in this world. People mistake it for weakness. Anna's voice grew firmer, her gaze locking onto his. No, kindness is not weakness. It's strength. It's the kind of strength that doesn't shout but still changes everything. Keanu held her eyes for a long time, the weight of her words pressing deep into him. For the first time that night, he felt something shift inside, like a door opening he had long kept shut. The audience would sense it too. The suspense was no longer about whether he would celebrate his birthday. It was about whether he would let someone in, whether he would allow kindness, respect, and humility to rebuild something inside him. Anna reached for the box she had brought and pushed it toward him. Open it, she said softly. His hands trembled slightly as he pulled away the wrapping. Inside was something simple yet profound, a small, handwritten letter folded neatly, tied with a string. He looked up at her, puzzled. A letter? She nodded. Read it later when you're alone. It's not just a gift, it's a truth, one you need to hear. Keanu held the letter gently, almost afraid to unfold it yet. The suspense grew again. What truth did it hold? What could she have written that mattered so much? He glanced back at Anna, who only smiled knowingly. Sometimes the words we write are easier than the ones we speak. The night stretched on, and with every passing moment, the story grew heavier, deeper, yet filled with hope. Keanu realized this was no ordinary birthday. This was the start of something that would change more than just one night. The letter lay on the table between them, small and fragile, yet carrying a weight neither of them could deny. Keanu's hand rested on it, his fingers brushing the thin paper as if afraid it might vanish if he held it too firmly. The gift wasn't gold. It wasn't glitter. It wasn't the kind of thing people usually gave him. It was far more dangerous. Truth, wrapped in silence. He looked at Anna, his voice hesitant, almost trembling. Why not just say it now? Why wait until later? Anna leaned back, her eyes calm but unreadable. Because some truths are heavier when spoken. Sometimes they need the quiet of the night when you're alone to sink in. If I said them now, they might break this moment, and I don't want to break tonight. Her answer hooked him, but also unsettled him. What truth could be so strong? It might break the moment? What could she possibly write that he wasn't ready to hear out loud? The audience watching would feel the same pull, curiosity gnawing at their hearts, urging them to stay, to find out what lay hidden inside that folded page. Keanu forced a faint smile, trying to lighten the mood. You always did know how to. Leave a mystery hanging. Anna chuckled softly, but there was no real playfulness in it. Her smile faded quickly, and her eyes searched his face with an intensity that made him shift uncomfortably. Maybe mystery is the only way people like us survive, she said quietly. He tilted his head, intrigued. People like us? Anna nodded slowly. Yes. People who live in the eyes of the world but whose hearts remain unseen. We hide the loneliness because no one wants to believe we carry it. They prefer the story of strength, of perfection. But in truth, it's exhausting. Isn't it? Keanu's breath caught. It was like she had cracked open a door he had kept bolted shut for years. It is, he admitted, his voice lower than before. Sometimes I wonder if anyone even sees me anymore, or just the idea of me. Anna's gaze didn't waver. I see you, Keanu. The words hung in the air, heavy, unshakable. Another hook. A moment so raw it demanded attention, leaving both Keanu and the viewers breathless. He blinked, swallowing hard, unsure how to respond. No one said that to him. Not like that. Not with that kind of truth. Anna leaned closer, her tone gentler now. And I think the world would be shocked if they knew how human you really are. But maybe it's not the world that needs to know. Maybe it's you. Her words dug deep. It was like looking into a mirror he had avoided for too long. Suddenly, the candle flickered again, weaker this time, as if it were ready to give out. Keanu reached forward quickly, cupping his hand around it. For a second, his face was lit by the soft glow, his eyes reflecting both the flame and the weight of the moment. Funny, he whispered, almost to himself. This little light keeps fighting. Maybe I should learn from it. Anna's lips curved into a faint smile. That's the thing about light. It doesn't question why. It just shines, even when no one is watching. The hook grew stronger. Her words weren't just about the candle. They were about him, about resilience, humility, and the quiet strength that defined him. Keanu leaned back slowly, exhaling a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. You always had a way of turning the simplest things into lessons, he murmured. Anna shook her head gently. No, you just never gave yourself enough credit for the lessons. You already live. You think people don't notice your kindness, your humility, but they do. I noticed. Everyone who works with you notices. The only one who doesn't is you. He looked at her, stunned by the honesty. It wasn't flattery. It wasn't empty praise. It was truth, spoken with a weight that could not be denied. The room grew silent again, but this silence was different, thicker, charged with something unspoken. Viewers would feel it too, leaning forward in anticipation. What would happen next? Would he open the letter? Would he confront the feelings he had buried? He reached out, fingers brushing the string tied around the folded paper. His hands trembled. Slightly, he wanted to open it, to end the suspense. But something stopped him. Not yet, he whispered. Anna nodded softly, as if she had expected that. You'll know when it's time. Her patience unsettled him even more. She wasn't pushing, wasn't demanding, just waiting. It made him realize how rare it was for someone to sit with him without expectation. To shift the air, Keanu stood and walked to the window. Outside, the night was calm, the city lights glowing faintly in the distance. He stared out for a long moment before speaking. You know, I thought this night would be like all the others. Quiet, lonely, easy to forget. But now I think I'll never forget it. Anna's voice came softly from behind him. Sometimes the nights we least expect become the ones that change everything. He turned back, meeting her eyes. Do you believe that? She held his gaze firmly. I do. Because this night already changed something for me too. Her confession caught him off guard. For you? He asked, his voice low. Anna nodded. Yes. Coming here wasn't just for you, Keanu. It was for me too. Because I needed to remind myself that kindness still matters, and you remind me of that. The hook twisted again. The story was no longer just about Keanu's loneliness. It was about both of them, about two people carrying invisible weights, finding strength in each other's presence. Keanu moved back to the table, his eyes soft but searching. Anna, whatever is in that letter, I'll read it. But tonight, just being here, hearing you say these things, it's already more than I could have asked for. Anna's smile was gentle, but her eyes glistened with emotion. Then maybe that's the real gift. Not the letter, not the words, but this. Just sitting here, sharing the silence, sharing the truth. Keanu looked at the candle again. The flame was smaller now, weaker, yet still alive. It mirrored his own heart, fragile, but refusing to die. And in that moment, he realized that even the smallest flame could hold back the darkest. Night. The clock ticked softly in the background, each second echoing through the quiet room. Keanu's eyes kept drifting back to the folded letter on the table. It was as if the paper itself was alive, pulling at him, whispering for him to open it. Yet something in him resisted, afraid of what he might find written there. Anna noticed his hesitation. She didn't rush him, didn't push. Instead, she leaned her chin gently on her hand and studied his face. Her silence was powerful. It forced Keanu to sit with his own thoughts, his own fears. Finally, he let out a breath. Anna, what could you possibly write that's too heavy to say out loud? Her gaze softened, but she didn't look away. Sometimes words written in ink carry more courage than words spoken, because once they're written, they can't be taken back. The line itself was a hook. Viewers would immediately wonder, what did she write that she can't take back? Keanu's hand hovered over the letter, but he still didn't move to untie it. You make it sound like there's something I won't want to hear. Anna's lips curved into a sad smile. Maybe it's something you've needed to hear all along. The tension thickened. The room seemed smaller, the shadows deeper. Every second stretched longer than the last. Keanu leaned back, shaking his head lightly as if trying to escape the weight pressing on him. It's strange. I've faced loss. I've faced pain. I've faced entire rooms of people judging me without knowing who I really am. But this, he gestured toward the letter, this scares me more than all of that. Anna's voice was gentle, steady. That's because truth always scares us more than lies. Lies can be forgotten. Truth lives with us. The hook dug deeper. The viewers would feel their own hearts pulled into the moment, wondering what truths they themselves were avoiding. Keanu's fingers finally gripped the string around the letter. He untied it slowly, his movements unsteady. The paper unfolded. With a soft crackle, the sound almost deafening in the silence. He hesitated one last time, his eyes closing briefly before he forced himself to read. The words on the page made his eyes widen. His lips parted slightly as if to speak, but no sound came. His chest rose and fell sharply. Anna watched him carefully, her own breathing uneven. The audience would be hooked here, desperate to know. What did the letter say? Keanu lowered the paper slightly, his hand trembling. Anna, why would you write this? She didn't flinch. Because it's the truth. He stared at her, his voice breaking. You wrote that you've seen me carry the weight of loneliness like it was your own. You wrote that kindness has cost me more than the world will ever. No. And then you... He paused, his throat tightening. You wrote that I deserve to be loved, but never allowed myself to believe it. Anna's eyes glistened. She whispered, because it's true. You've given the world so much love, Keanu, but you've convinced yourself you don't deserve it in return. His breath caught, his eyes dropping back to the letter. The words blurred slightly as tears threatened to rise. He had lived his life quietly, never demanding affection, never asking for recognition. But hearing someone put it into words, seeing it written so plainly, was more than he had prepared for. The hook was emotional, raw. Could a man who gave so much to others finally allow himself to receive? Anna, he began, but his voice broke. He looked away, blinking rapidly, trying to steady himself. She leaned forward, her tone steady but filled with care. You've taught people that strength is in silence, that humility is in action, that respect is earned by how you treat others. But Keanu, humility doesn't mean denying yourself the right to be cared for. The words pierced him. For years, he had hidden behind humility, using it as both a shield and a burden. Now, for the first time, someone was telling him it was okay to be seen, to be cared for, to be loved. His hand gripped the edge of the table as if holding himself steady. I don't know if I know how. Anna's expression softened further, her voice barely above a whisper. Then let someone teach you. Let this night be the beginning. Another hook, the possibility of transformation, of healing, of a new chapter starting not with grand gestures, but with a single moment of honesty. Keanu looked at her for a long time, his heart pounding. The candle between them finally sputtered, its flame shrinking to a small glow before going out completely. The room fell into soft darkness, broken only by the pale moonlight streaming through the window. He exhaled deeply, almost a release. The candle's gone, he said softly. Anna's voice carried through the dim light. Then maybe it's time for a new light to begin. The words struck him deeper than anything else that night. He realized the candle had been symbolic all along, his fading hope, his fragile flame. And now, in its place, was something brighter. The possibility of connection, of truth, of love. The room was darker now, touched only by moonlight. The extinguished candle left behind a faint trail of smoke, curling into the air like a ghost of what had been. Keanu sat in silence, the letter still trembling in his hands, Anna watching him with a patience that felt both comforting and unnerving. The night had already gone deeper than he imagined it would, but a strange sense of unfinished weight lingered between them. Keanu leaned back, his voice low, rough around the edges. Anna, why me? Why tonight? You could have been anywhere, with anyone. Why step into my loneliness? Anna's expression softened, but there was a seriousness in her eyes that had not been there before. Because I know how it feels to drown in silence, and because I didn't want you to mistake being alone for being forgotten. Her words struck him hard. Another hook. Was being alone the same as being forgotten? Or was it possible that someone remembered even when the world seemed not to? Before he could respond, a sudden knock broke through the air. Sharp, unexpected, louder than the gentle taps that had first announced Anna's arrival. Keanu froze, his eyes darting toward the door. Anna straightened in her chair, her brow furrowing. Were you expecting anyone? No, Keanu said quickly, his tone filled with both surprise and unease. The knock came again, firmer this time. The sound cut through the room like a blade. The audience watching would lean in closer. Who could it be? And why now in the middle of this fragile moment? Keanu stood slowly, his heart thumping harder with each step he took toward the door. He hesitated just like earlier in the night, his hand hovering over the knob. But this time, the hesitation carried more fear. He opened the door cautiously, and there, standing in the pale glow of the porch light, was a figure he hadn't expected to see in years. It was an old friend, someone who had once been close, but had disappeared from his life without explanation. Michael, Keanu whispered, his voice barely audible. The man's face was lined with time, his eyes shadowed with something unspoken. Happy birthday, Keanu, he said quietly, his voice carrying both warmth and weight. Keanu blinked, stunned, his throat tightening. What are you doing here? Michael's gaze shifted past Keanu, landing on Anna. Recognition flickered in his eyes, but he said nothing about it. Instead, he stepped forward slightly. I heard you'd be spending it alone. I couldn't let that happen. Not after everything. The words cracked something open inside Keanu. Not after everything. What did he mean? What history lay between them? The viewers would feel the tension coil tighter, sensing an untold story waiting to surface. Anna glanced at Keanu, sensing the storm building beneath his calm exterior. She didn't speak, but her eyes asked the question for her. Who is he to you? Keanu's jaw tightened. It's been years, Michael. You can't just show up like this. Michael's voice grew heavier. I know, but some things can't be left undone. Some debts have to be faced, even if it's too late. The hook deepened. What debt? What unfinished story? The birthday that had begun with silence was now unraveling into something layered with old wounds. Anna finally spoke, her tone measured. Maybe tonight isn't just about Keanu being remembered. Maybe it's about him facing what he's tried to forget. Her words lingered in the air, sharp yet strangely true. Keanu's shoulders tensed. He wanted to argue, to push it all away, but something in him knew she was right. Michael stepped inside slowly, his eyes never leaving Keanu's. You've carried too much alone. I know I'm part of why. Keanu felt the room closing in. Memories stirred. Memories he had buried deep. Nights of betrayal, moments of silence that cut sharper than words, friendships lost to pride and pain. The past was knocking as loudly as Michael had at his door. Anna's voice broke the silence. Keanu, maybe this is the night to let it out. The night to stop carrying it alone. Her presence grounded him. It wasn't just about her kindness anymore. It was about the way she seemed to understand that his healing needed more than one voice, more than one truth. Keanu looked from Anna to Michael, his eyes raw with conflict. You both came tonight, and I don't know why. But maybe I need to find out. The viewers would feel the suspense thickening. What happened between Keanu and Michael? Would he open up or shut the door again? Anna leaned forward, her gaze steady. The letter was one truth. Maybe he's another. Keanu sank back into his chair, the letter still clutched in one hand. Michael now standing silently inside the room, the weight of unspoken history heavy in the air. The night was no longer just about loneliness or kindness. It had become a crossroads, where past wounds and present hope collided. The room felt heavy, the kind of heaviness that comes when too many truths are circling, waiting to be spoken. Keanu sat with the letter still in his hand, Anna watching from her chair, and Michael standing silently by the door. The three of them seemed frozen in a triangle of unspoken words, each moment stretching, pulling, daring someone to break the silence. Keanu finally spoke, his voice quiet but edged with tension. Why now, Michael? After all these years, why tonight? Michael shifted uneasily, his eyes lowered before lifting to meet Keanu's gaze. Because I heard the same thing Anna did, that you'd be spending your birthday alone, and because I couldn't carry it any longer. The guilt, the silence. I left when you needed me most, and I told myself it was easier to disappear. But every year, every time I saw your face in the world, I remembered. I remembered the friend I failed. The hook pulled deeper. The viewers would feel their own breath slow, drawn into the raw honesty of a man admitting his fault after years of silence. Keanu's jaw tightened. You disappeared after the accident. His voice cracked slightly on the word. When everything fell apart, I looked around for people I thought would be there. And you weren't. Anna's eyes widened slightly. The accident. The audience, too, would lean closer, sensing a history that shaped Keanu's loneliness. Michael's voice dropped, thick with regret. I was a coward. I didn't know how to stand beside your pain. I thought leaving would hurt you less than staying and being useless. But it only made everything worse. For both of us. The words cut through Keanu like glass. He had buried that betrayal, told himself it no longer mattered. But here it was, alive again, demanding to be faced. Anna broke the silence, her voice steady, grounding. Sometimes the people we expect to stand with us fall away, not because they don't care, but because they don't know how. The question is, what do we do when they come back? Her words became another hook, not just for Keanu, but for anyone listening. Do you hold on to the wound, or do you let kindness heal it? Keanu closed his eyes, leaning back, his breathing uneven. I don't know if I can forgive you, Michael. Part of me still hurts. Part of me still wonders why I had to go through all that alone. Michael's shoulders sagged. Then don't forgive me tonight. Just let me say it. I'm sorry, Keanu. I failed you, and I can't undo it. But if there's even a small chance to stand here again, not as the friend I was, but as the friend I should have been, then I'll take it. The weight of the words filled the room. Anna leaned forward now, her eyes moving between them. Tonight isn't about the past. It's about the choice you make with it. Keanu, you've lived so long giving kindness without asking for it. Maybe tonight is about learning to accept it, from me, from him, from anyone who truly sees you. Her voice softened, almost breaking. You don't have to be alone anymore. The hook tightened around the audience's hearts. Would Keanu allow himself to finally let people back in? Would he choose hope over isolation? Keanu looked at the letter in his hand, then at Michael, then at Anna. His eyes shimmered, tears he had fought for years finally pressing through. I've carried silence like it was armor, he whispered, but it's only ever made me heavier. Maybe tonight, maybe I can lay some of it down. Anna's lips curved into a trembling smile, her own eyes shining. That's all anyone can ask. Michael stepped closer, carefully, as if afraid to break the fragile moment. Then let me stand with you now, not because I deserve it, but because you do. Keanu's hands trembled as he placed the letter down on the table. Then slowly he reached out, first toward Michael, then toward Anna. His voice cracked but carried the strength of release. I don't know what tomorrow will look like, but tonight, I don't want to sit in silence anymore. Anna took his hand gently. Michael placed his hand over theirs. It was not grand, not dramatic. It was simple, human, and real. Three people bound by mistakes, by kindness, by forgiveness. The viewers would feel the release too, the catharsis of a man who had carried too much, finally letting light back into his life. Outside, the moonlight brightened as clouds shifted, flooding the room with soft silver glow. The candle was gone, but its message lived on. Light always returns, even after darkness. Keanu exhaled deeply, his voice steady now. Thank you, both of you. Tonight, for the first time in a long time, I don't feel invisible. Anna squeezed his hand. That's because you never were. You just needed to believe it again. Michael's voice broke with emotion. And you'll never be alone again. Not if I have anything to say about it. The three of them sat together in the quiet glow of the night, no longer strangers to silence, but companions to healing.